Hey guys, it's Jess. Well, I am still up. I guess it's officially the 22nd. Oh, puppies. Totally forgot the type of dogs they are, but oh well. I've been doing laundry most of the day and talking to old friends and talked to the landlord. The exterminator's coming on Monday. Yay! Uh, Still smoking. I said this weekend I was gonna quit, and hey, it's only Friday. Jeez, you do a hell of a lot more stuff and you're awake all freaking night. So I am sitting on my end table by the window, which is why the light is so intense. And ooh, especially in that shot. Face like disappears into the wall. Wow, I'm white. I think if I do manage to get my hands on some turmeric and coconut oil, then I'm about ready for it. Probably from these things. Ugh. And the coffee I've been... Well, I mean, it's just been a few coffees, and there's whitener in it, or cream, so it's actually not all that bad for the teeth. So... I should probably pick up my list and see what I was supposed to talk about today. Today, I think I'm telling you... Oh, well, I can talk a little bit about the neighbors and a little bit about my story. So, Peace is really cool, but him and Derek are both older gentlemen, and you know that comes with its own share of territory. So, I have this really annoying neighbor that lives on my floor. He's gross. He's a little gross. I don't know if I really understand him as a person. I haven't really tried to get to know him, so to be fair. But he's gross. He leaves the door open when he goes to the bathroom for some reason. He leaves food out that he doesn't want anymore. He doesn't seem to have any respect for people's things. There was this one time, I mean, he does and he doesn't. The second I mentioned the milk he bought that he drank, he bought me a new thing of milk, and the but then food started going missing, and that was a whole ordeal for a minute there. I kind of flipped out because chicken burgers are not cheap. So, right, he took my pot, my cooking pot, and puked in it, and left it sitting in his room, so that was kind of gross. He's kind of like a child, in a weird way, and I really don't know much about him other than that. I also have a girl who just moved in not too long ago, right before, just not fair timing, right before I found out about the bugs. And she's the one with the boyfriend who lives on the second floor, whose name is David. I'm pretty sure that's his name. Pretty sure he lives on the second floor. And then there's another girl whose name I do not know. I just know that she lives directly beside me, across that wall, and she seems nice. So I have officially hung up all my things up there. I didn't wash anything that was already hanging off there, which I might do the towel because it needs to be bleached anyway, but other than that, blah. And then, let's see, neighbors. Then there's Richard, who's on the first floor with Derek. Peace used to live on the first floor, I think. Wait, did I say David? I meant to say, yeah, I said Peace. Jeez, so tired. So he used to live here and doesn't anymore, and yeah, so that's all that. And then we have the nice, he's nice to me anyway, the guy who does the repairs around here, and I think his name is Bert, if I'm not mistaken. And Tammy is the girl I usually deal with. She's the one who showed me the place, made me sign the lease. Ellie is the owner. There's another guy who I've never met, named Rick. He's the property manager. Never met him. And then Mark lives on the second floor. He's older too. Not as old as the other two, but he's older. And, or at least, not as old looking. Pretty sure he's younger than the two of them by a bit. He's talkative, he's nice. Don't know him very well. I've probably talked to Richard more than I've talked to Mark. And I don't think there's any other girls except for us three on this floor. There might be one. And then there's Tristan, who lives below me, and he's the one I knew when I initially moved in here, and I was talking about him in the other video, and yeah, he's most likely, although probably maybe just a contributing factor to the bed bugs problem. He lied about it, and I'm not happy about that. So, that's that. And this kooky little gang is what I know makes up the, I don't know if it's entirely 20 rooms in this house, because the office is labeled 1, and then the third room is attached to the office. And I know there's just a lot of empty rooms in this place, and that's probably quite typical. So, sitting on my ass on wood is not very comfy. So that's that. There's a lot of liquor. Like, there's a bar club, exclusive type club thing, not a half a block away beside the Quickway convenience store, and then the gas station, just sort of a convenience store. And then up that way towards the library, there's a Sobeys, a Subway, and a bunch of other stuff. And that way towards the Ultramar and around the curve, it becomes Barrington. There's a superstore, and both of them have liquor stores. So it's a little interesting. There are lots of bottles to be found around here, that's for sure. So that's where I live currently. That's my whole thing, and my story is kind of all over the place. I'll run you through the details. Or I won't run you through the details. I mean, so I'm 24, as you guys probably know, if you've been watching. I've been homeless. I've been a bunch of things that I'm not sure if I'm going to say or not. Probably not in this one. I've dabbled in drugs. But I'm sober now. I barely even drink, really, when it comes down to it. I'm sleep deprived, though. Jesus Christ. Let's see. Okay, so I don't have a father. My mother was a single mother growing or raising 3 kids, including me. That leads us to she has had 3 people, major people in her life, maybe 4 if including before my dad. So before my dad, Pat, who was amazing, and Gary, who was not so amazing. So I delivered newspapers with my mom, I think starting around 10. I know we helped her with other things before that, but I'm not 100% on what. She was on welfare when she first left him, and then, she raised us. That lands us, I've lived in 2 group homes. When I was 14, that's when I got into smoking weed. Drinking was the second group home, and sex, and cutting myself. I was severely depressed. Mom was already with Gary. He was kind of abusive. Blah, 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 blah. Shoot to a few years later, suffice to say, I figured out there was a lot of messed up stuff in the world, a lot of messy people, a lot of screwed up things. So in junior high, I guess it's important to know I had to repeat grade 7 because I was homeschooled and I refused to do the work. So I was in junior high and I met this one girl named Cassie, and we started running off to go do drugs at the mall, and she actually convinced me to do ecstasy the first time, and that was the first major drug that I ever did. I was 15, or I was 15 or just turning 16, something like that. And yeah. So that was a 3-year-long excursion. I made lots of great friends, here and there, picked up a lot of interesting stories, expanded my mind, accidentally did acid, smoked a lot of weed, got over it, moved on, and I had a varied love life from 14 till that time, and then I just stopped. So I kind of sort of thought that I was special, that I had something more than other people, that I could rule the world, that I could lead people, and in some ways or another I kind of did back in high school. I wasn't we went to a delinquent school, I have to mention that. Fresh Start Fresh Start Mill Woods, and I refused to do the work, and I decided to drop out so that I could find myself, and all of this crap. We eventually, 18 hit, and we quit ecstasy for good. I dabbled in other things because of that, and then I guess Mom broke up with Gary. She reconnected with her father, who she hadn't seen in 20 years. We moved out here to Nova Scotia, which I didn't want to go. I did not want to go at all. But things were such that Mom was better off coming here, and she wanted me to go, so I did. year later, suffice to say, I hitchhiked my way up to Halifax from the valley because I am not a small town girl. No. I like the idea of being a housewife in a small town, not a teenager, not a young adult. And who knows what the future holds, but so I was pretty depressed around that time too. It's sorted, but I wound up in shelters because I had nowhere else to go, and you know, kind of a falling out with my family that led me here. I lost my job, all sorts of depressing stuff. And I was kind of cutting myself. I was kind of dabbling in witchcraft or Wiccan or multi-religion. You know, I kind of shed all of that I'm going to rule the world thing and through my journey all the way up here. And then I found Phil. Biggest, worst, most interesting mistake of my life. The typical drug addict story, you know, girl meets boy, boy's addicted to drugs, boy introduces girls to drugs, and girl becomes, I guess I'll decide to do this to say what I was going to say before. Girl becomes a prostitute. So, it wasn't about the drugs. It was, he was smoking them. You know, we had worked together as painters, and he was spending the money left, right, and center, and my friend from the shelter did that, so I figured I would. So I maintained our ability to eat and tried to save money, but I wasn't very good at it. So he put us online. Ingenious, really ingenious. We made the money like that, and we moved into a better place. We survived. But I didn't want to be on those drugs, and he got on worse drugs, and that was it. I was done. Made my mind up right there to get out the second I could. Then I met a client who was unbelievable, loved me. So, another love story, one that obviously couldn't last. I mean, really, he was no Richard Gere. So, I get off the drugs. I spend my time there. I kind of am in love with this guy, but like he could have committed to me. And so I make the money. I accumulate the stuff. And then I find out I'm pregnant. And it's not the clients. It's Phil's. So I'm liberal. I did not go through with it. I hadn't known for the first 2 months. He was a drug addict. I was a whore. What are the chances that I could have made it on welfare? Or, you know, what kind of pressure is that putting on the client? That's what I'm going to call him for his own whatever. And I guess at the end of the day, I made the spiritual, mental, and physical decision to not go through with it. So that led me back to the shelters. And then my grandpa was dying. And then I moved back in with Mom. I helped her, I helped him, I did my best. But I wasn't meant to be there, and after he died, which was last year, right around about a month ago, right between Christmas, or right before Christmas, he went, and it was really quite sad. but I barely knew him. I didn't get the same. I've lived here for 4 years. I mean, I only got a year with the guy, and it's really sad. Lung cancer. That's the reason why I want to quit smoking. So, there's that. And I found myself a little bit depressed over that. I kind of drove Mom and Meg and Greg to kind of look at me, and I went, alright, well, I'm going to figure something out. I'll get out of your hair. And all of a sudden, it was the year of the sheep. I'm about to turn 24. It's the second cycle of my year for me. And I am incredibly lucky. I meet this guy who kind of reminds me of the client, and I kind of, entertain the idea of moving to Toronto, and I kind of this, that, and the other thing. I'm already in 20 minutes, so I might as well go the whole distance. I was trying to write my book, and it wasn't working. Wasn't working, and I couldn't figure out why. I had the story. The story was done. It still might be done there. I'm still not really quite finished it, but memoirs are like that. I mean, we think every little detail of our lives is important, and it's truly not. It's important to the lives of others. That's why, self-absorbed people drive me crazy. But we all have to be that way a little. So, continuing with my story, my blog. Vlog. Mom was willing to send me out there. Wasn't exactly sure I wanted to go, so I ended up in Halifax again. And a series of events happened that landed me with a tattoo. Infinite frustration at shelters with certain people. I managed to get down to 5 cigarettes a day and sustain that. Now more like 10 a day. Actually, no, I'm back down to 5 to 7. So, anyway. No, that's kind of important, though, I mean, if I weren't a smoker and, somewhere along this year I went, okay, if I don't smoke weed and I don't smoke cigarettes, then what the heck do I do? I'd have to be a drinker and a worker. I mean, if I'm not a pothead coming up with every conspiracy and talking to every person and developing connections, and that's my sort of way in the world, then I don't, I don't have this taking up my money, then what do I do? Dive into work and drink. And, people come up with different answers. Play video games, do this, do that. Well, actually the most popular answer was live forever. No. But, so, I couldn't write my story. That really bothered me, so I thought to myself, there's got to be more to it then. Went back to the original shelter I ended up first. There's 2 shelters, and it's really not dissimilar to being at 2 different group homes. There's a different version of things. It's the duality all over again. 2 sides to every story. So, actually, technically, I've been to 3 shelters because I was at a youth shelter before I came home. Anyway. Oh, my ass. So, this spring, I looked at it and looked at it and looked at it. I lived in both of the shelters off and on, and I went, yeah, nobody's getting me a place. I can't seem to find a job. I'd been putting out resumes to every store, every, minimal thing that I could, and I hadn't gotten my GED yet, which really sucked, but I had studied for it and I had passed all the, practice tests. So on and so forth. They weren't helping me a heck of a lot. So I went, screw it. I wasn't a prostitute anymore. I wasn't, drugs had no play in it. I had accumulated enough things that I had my pick. So I went, you know what? I'm going to go live outside. Why not? It's summer, practically. It was actually an accident, but it turned into something that went, you know what? I'm done. I don't want to deal with shelters and their schedules. I don't want to deal with social workers that don't call back, and I don't want to deal. So I spent the entire summer asking people for change and finding a ukulele that really, really made me just enthralled. And I wrote bits and pieces of my book. I wrote lots and lots of poetry. I met lots and lots of people. And I came across Chris. It felt good to be able to make music and tell people, smile or spare change. And people just love that. I don't know why, but they just love that. So I went with it, broke down all my items, so on and so forth. Met a few people, slept under the bridge. It's much more complicated than all that, which is why I'm adding on to it. But in the end, I met Chris. And here was this guy who, if not, a little dumb, was sweet. Wanted me from the get-go. And I wasn't quite ready, but I mean, not as far as I was over the client guy, but I just wasn't quite ready for commitment. And he adored me. He convinced me of all these things, He made it easy for me to believe in myself. So I got better at ukulele, and I showed him my world, and things changed a lot. Go through the summer, meet his family. I lost myth and bought fable. Who actually felt more right in the end. Wrote more of my book, and I decided, okay, it's fall. I gotta move into the shelter. Moved into the shelter, add some house as opposed to Berry House, which is where I started, and when I left on purpose. And, well, 2 months later, I had this place. Everything kind of worked tickety-boom, and there's trials and tribulations to be had, but these conversations I have with these guys down there just, makes me feel like I'm an adult, makes me feel like I'm actually accomplishing the things that I have always wanted to do. And I might have more wrinkles than I thought I would at 24, and I might not have a kid and a marriage, and I might still be a little lost, but I love who I turned out to be. I really do, and that's the main thing. I'm still working on it, but everything is altogether awesome, and I hope you are too. Much love.